Palestinian factions and forces thank President Sisi for Egypt's mediation efforts in ending the war in Gaza. Witkoff announces phase 2 of the 20-point plan to end the Gaza conflict. Egypt, Qatar and Turkey welcome Palestinian technocrats committee to administer Gaza Strip. p.m. You're watching Q News. It's time for the news bulletin with me, Hala Al-Hamalawi. Palestinian factions and forces have held a meeting in Cairo to unify their national vision for the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire agreement. In a statement, they expressed appreciation for Egypt, Qatar, Turkey and President Donald Trump for supporting the Palestinian people and alleviating Gaza's suffering. The factions declared support for mediators forming the Palestinian National Transitional Committee to manage Gaza, emphasizing the committee's immediate assumption of responsibilities and coordination with the Council of Peace for overseeing reconstruction. They reaffirmed full commitment to implementing the ceasefire and President Donald Trump's plan, while urging mediators to pressure Israel to end aggression, reopen crossings, and allow essential humanitarian aid. Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdel-Ati has announced agreement on the members of the Palestinian Technocratic Committee, comprising 15 members, which will manage affairs in the Gaza Strip. He reaffirmed Egypt's core stances and red lines regarding the Palestinian cause, emphasizing that Gaza and the West Bank form an indivisible foundation for the Palestinian state. He added that Egypt will not accept any artificial lines or attempts to divide the Gaza Strip, describing such division as a red line that is entirely unacceptable. Abdel-Ati stressed Cairo's commitment to safeguarding Palestinian unity and ensuring that any governance or administrative arrangements respect the territorial and political integrity of Palestine. U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff has announced phase 2 of the 20-point plan to end the Gaza conflict, advancing from ceasefire to full demilitarization, technocratic governance and reconstruction on behalf of U.S. President Donald Trump. In a post on X, he announced that phase 2 establishes the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza to manage a transitional Palestinian administration, oversee disarmament of unauthorized personnel and rebuild Gaza. Witkoff added that Hamas is expected to comply fully, including the immediate return of the final deceased detainee, with serious consequences for non-compliance. He mentioned that Phase 1 achieved historic humanitarian aid delivery, maintained the ceasefire, and returned all living detainees and most remains. He thanked Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar for critical mediation support. According to Israeli media, Israel's security apparatus supports the green light given by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to U.S. President Donald Trump regarding Israel's readiness to move to Phase 2 at the Gaza peace plan. Israeli media reported that the Palestinian Technocrats Committee tasked with administering Gaza comprises figures deemed acceptable to Israel. However, estimates suggest that Israel's withdrawal from the Yellow Line is not imminent. Separately, Lufthansa has informed its staff to prepare for departure from Israel and to cancel flights starting tomorrow, reflecting heightened caution amid ongoing tensions and uncertainty in the region. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that the announcement of the Palestinian Technocrats Committee will not affect Israel's ongoing efforts to recover the body of the last Israeli detainee held in Gaza. He also emphasized that Israel expects Hamas to fully comply with the Gaza ceasefire agreement, underlining the importance of maintaining the truce while pursuing humanitarian and security objectives. The Israeli Prime Minister's office stated that they have provided mediators with information on the location of the remains of the last Israeli detainee and hope that it will immediately lead to a field operation.
Really a hero of Israel, to return here, and then we very shortly expect to move into the second.
The Palestinian presidency has welcomed U.S. President Donald Trump's efforts to advance the full implementation of his Gaza peace plan. It affirmed support for the formation of a Palestinian committee to manage Gaza and emphasized the importance of linking institutions in the West Bank and Gaza to ensure coordinated governance. The Palestinian presidency underscored the need to work closely with the United States and other partners to take decisive measures in the West Bank, running in parallel with the transitional phase in Gaza, reinforcing unity, stability, and effective administration across Palestinian territories. The mediators, Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey, have welcomed the establishment of the Palestinian Technocrats Committee, chaired by Dr. Ali Abdelhamid Shaath, to administer the Gaza Strip. In a statement by the Egyptian Foreign Ministry, Egypt highlights that this marks a key step towards strengthening stability and improving humanitarian conditions in Gaza. The statement added that the mediators hope the committee will facilitate the implementation of the second phase of the ceasefire, aligned with U.S. President Donald Trump's plan, while preventing renewed escalation. They emphasized that all parties must fully comply with the agreement to achieve lasting peace, create conditions for reconstruction, and fulfill the Palestinian people's aspirations for security, stability, and a dignified life. Palestinian news agency Wafa has reported that a Palestinian citizen was killed by Israeli fire east of Khan Yunis, while the Israeli military says that it struck 6 armed individuals in Rafah. Wafa also reported a series of Israeli airstrikes in recent hours on western areas of Rafah and a separate airstrike east of Khan Yunis. The Israeli occupation military, on the other hand, claimed its Rafah strikes targeted 6 armed individuals. Residents in southern Gaza say that families are rebuilding damaged homes with mud and rubble amid severe shortages of construction materials. In Khan Yunis, residents say that people are mixing mud with water and reusing stones salvaged from destroyed buildings to repair parts of their homes. The UN says that the war has generated vast quantities of debris and widespread destruction, leaving many with few options for shelter. Palestinians say that restrictions have limited the entry of construction materials. Israel says that such materials are considered dual use and will not be allowed in until a later phase of wider peace plan, citing security concerns. For more analysis, we now move to Hani Saif in our newsroom. To you, Hani.
Thank you, Heda. Ladies and gentlemen, we're joined from Cairo by the advisor at the Center for Strategic Studies of the Armed Forces and expert in regional security, Major General Dr. Wael Rabia. Dr. Rabia, welcome to Q News. How significant is the establishment of the Palestinian Technocrats Committee for Gaza in Egypt's mediation efforts? How will the transitional technocratic administration manage the day-to-day governance in Gaza?
Of course, we must say that the Foreign Ministry's statement has welcomed a technocratic committee with Dr. Ali Abdel Hamid Sha'ath as its leader, and so this is of course such a breakthrough for the mediators, and this committee is actually really important because it will be organizing and making sure that aid distribution is going as it should have been, and that Gaza is receiving 608 trucks daily, and then they will also organize and coordinate with all institutions in the Gaza Strip. And during today's meeting in Cairo, Hamas has said that they are ready to give up control and governance in the Gaza Strip to the Technocratic Committee, because this committee isn't just about Ali Shant, but it has an economic committee, a health committee, and an aid committee, social services committee, and so all of this was agreed upon actually in when it comes to the Technocratic Committee. And I think that tomorrow this committee will be convening in Cairo to make everything clear and to draw the framework.
Well, how does Egypt envision the committee facilitating the transition to phase 2 of Trump's Gaza plan? What practical steps is the committee expected to take to improve the humanitarian conditions in Gaza?
Of course, this committee, when they take over governance from Hamas, and when they start taking control over the institutions, they'll be getting or they'll be taking over the health committee, the communications committee, and so this technocratic committee will take actual governance of the Strip. It is a government on a smaller scale, basically, and they'll be handling everything in the Gaza Strip when it comes to security, communications, health, aid delivery, and so on. And so I think that this one of the things that this technocratic committee will be handling and will actually be such a weight is delivering or aid entry to make the humanitarian situation better. Things are catastrophic for the Palestinians on the Gaza Strip, and I think that Egypt has been putting in so much effort to ease the suffering of the Palestinians on the Gaza Strip. And so when this technocratic committee takes over, it will be getting Egypt help. And so Cairo will be delivering lots and lots of aid, and there will be a committee that will be responsible for receiving this aid and distributing it in the Gaza Strip.
So what obstacles remain regarding Israel's withdrawal from the yellow line, and how can Egypt address them then?
As for the yellow line for Israel, there are so many opposing point of views here. We've listened to lots of statements like what Eyal Zamir has said. He said that this is the border for the Gaza Strip, basically, and the U.S. actually refused this when he stated it. And honestly, this could be one of the main obstacles here. Israel holding on to their yellow line, and as you know, they have goals and plans inside Israel, and there are reports that say they are planning to have a settlement at the Gaza Strip in the Yellow Line, and so of course this is absolutely refused by Egypt and the mediators, the U.S. as well. The U.S. has been putting on pressure on Israel so that they don't have their settlement goals in the Gaza Strip.
What does Egypt's active role in Phase 2 signal about its broader influence in Palestinian reconciliation and regional stability?
Of course, Egypt had such an active role when it comes to the Palestinian cause, especially with what happened today. You know, the factions convening in Cairo, and so the mediators were here as well, and they basically had the outcomes, or like the headlines of how Phase 2 will be moving on. And then of course Egypt, Qatar and Turkey had such a huge effort when it comes to forming a technocratic committee, and if it weren't for Egypt and its efforts and the mediators' efforts as well, we wouldn't have been here. We wouldn't have a technocratic committee, because Egypt has been really keen to get the Palestinian factions together and to bring their point of views together under a unified stance so that they can deal with Israel. And so without a clear vision or a unified stance for the Palestinian factions, and then they wouldn't have been able to, or they wouldn't be able to implement and complete Phase 2. And so Egypt being successful in bringing together point of views of the Palestinian factions, I think that this is such a breakthrough and shows how much effort Egypt has been putting in, and also the mediators as well.
Major General Dr. Wael Rabia from Cairo, the advisor at the Center for Strategic Studies of the Armed Forces and expert in regional security. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on Q News. Ladies and gentlemen, now we head back to Hela Al-Hamalawi in our studio. Hela.
Thank you so much, Hani, for the analysis. Moving on with our news bulletin, Israel's Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich said that Israel has completed steps to recognize 20 settlements in the occupied West Bank within a month. Smotrich said that settlement activity in the West Bank is expanding rapidly and vowed Israel will, in his words, end the idea of a Palestinian state. The remarks come as Israel's government has recently approved new settlements and granted legal status to a number of previously unauthorized outposts, moves that have drawn international criticism. The UN and many countries consider Israeli settlements in occupied territory illegal under international law, a position Israel disputes. UNRWA says that its operational presence in occupied East Jerusalem is nearing an end after Israeli forces ordered the closure of one of its facilities. The agency said that Israeli forces entered UNRWA's Jerusalem Health Center and instructed staff to shut it down. UNRWA said that the measures violate international law and run contrary to rulings by the International Court of Justice. Israel has not immediately commented on the agency's statement.
كل المستهدفين هن مدنيين. وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
The Lebanese presidency says that an international conference to support the Lebanese army will be held in Paris on March the 5th, with French President Emmanuel Macron set to open it. Presidency spokesperson Najat Sharafuddin said that participating parties have agreed to step up contacts to secure the broadest possible international audience and attendance aimed at boosting support for Lebanon. The conference is expected to focus on strengthening the army's capabilities and sustaining assistance as Lebanon faces continued political and economic strain. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has discussed preparations for an international conference to support the Lebanese army and internal security forces. The talks were held at Baabda Palace during a broad meeting shared by Aoun with the French delegation and ambassadors of Egypt, Qatar, and the United States, alongside Saudi Arabia's envoy to Beirut. Participants agreed to intensify contacts to secure the widest possible international participation in the conference. Moving on to the situation in Libya, where Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdel-Ati has said that Egypt supports Libya's unity and stability, rejecting foreign intervention or any foreign military presence. In further talks with U.S. advisor Mossad Boulos on Arab and African affairs, Abdel-Ati said that Cairo backs a political track leading to an internal Libyan settlement. He stressed the need to continue efforts towards presidential and parliamentary elections as soon as possible, arguing a credible vote is key to ending divisions and restoring stable state institutions. In Sudan, the UN Development Programme in Sudan says that up to 80% of newborns need oxygen support in neonatal units, warning shortages are putting lives at risk. UNDP called for a steady, reliable supply of medical oxygen to hospitals to help curb rising deaths as the humanitarian crisis continues. It said that strengthening oxygen systems is critical for maternity and neonatal care, and urged faster support to keep facilities operating and reach the most vulnerable patients. Now we move on to the latest developments in Iran. A senior Iranian official has told Reuters that Tehran has warned regional countries that it will target U.S. military bases on their territory if the United States attacks Iran. A senior Iranian official has told Reuters that Tehran has warned countries in the region hosting U.S. forces that their American bases would be hit if Washington launches an attack on Iran. The official said that Iran has already conveyed that message directly to regional states. Tehran also urged those governments to prevent the United States from using their territory to strike Iran. Reuters did not name the official. Iran's judiciary chief has pledged fast-track trials for suspects detained during the protests as internet disruptions continue for a seventh day, according to NetBlocks. Iran's judiciary chief has pledged swift trials for suspects detained in connection with the protests across the country. He said that priority will go to prosecuting armed individuals and those accused of carrying out what he described as terrorist attacks during the unrest. Separately, internet monitoring group NetBlocks reported that internet disruption in Iran has continued for a seventh consecutive day as authorities tighten restrictions amid ongoing protests. On the other hand, Iran has accused U.S. President Donald Trump of encouraging political destabilization and inciting violence. In a message sent to the UN, Iran has accused U.S. President Donald Trump of encouraging political destabilization, inciting violence, and threatening the country's sovereignty and national security. In a letter to the UN Security Council and Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Iran's UN ambassador Amir Saeed Iravani said that the United States and Israel bear legal responsibility for the deaths of civilian protesters in Tehran. The letter did not provide evidence for the allegations.
And they know it. Keep protesting, take over your institutions if possible, and save the name of the killers and the abusers that are abusing you. You're being very badly abused. If the numbers are right now, I hear 5 different sets of numbers. I hear numbers, look, 1 death is too much, but I hear much lower numbers, and then I hear much higher numbers. But
U.S. President Donald Trump says that the death toll from Iran's crackdown on protesters appears significant and says that he will act after getting more information. Speaking to reporters after landing at Joint Base Andrews near Washington, Trump said that the toll looks like it's significant, but added that he didn't yet know for certain. He said that he expected to have an update within 20 minutes and that the United States would act accordingly without providing details on what steps could follow.
Iran is on my mind when I see the kind of death that is happening over there, we think. So we're going to get some accurate numbers. I'll have it in about 20 minutes. We'll get some accurate numbers as to what's happening.
Japan's Prime Minister and South Korea's President wrapped up their summit with an unexpected K-pop drum session. Video released by Seoul's presidential office shows the footage shows that the 2 leaders playing drums to global hits, including BTS's Dynamite and Golden from Netflix's animated musical K-pop Demon Hunters. The moment followed talks where both leaders said that they aim to deepen security and economic cooperation amid rising tensions in the East Asia part. They also pledged to continue shuttle diplomacy, with Japan's leader expected to visit South Korea next.